My name is Omid from London, the beautiful London here in the United Kingdom. We have an amazing webinar for everybody tonight. This is no ordinary webinar, I got to tell you, because we got some of the best in some of the multiple worlds. And this is just fascinating what we're going to be talking about here. We got amazing panelists. And of course, we have an award-winning visual effects artist, Fabian Nowak, who will actually break down one of the most magnificent scenes of all time, the gravity scene of the movie Passengers. But let me just give you an overview real quick of what to expect today in terms of what we're going to do right after this. So we'll be having Grid Markets founders, Mark Ross and Hakeem Karim, walking you through a little bit of an overview on Grid Markets, the company, and Grid Markets submission pipeline. Then we'll have our resident Houdini artist, Adam Fristad, who will do a quick demo on the submission process for Houdini. We also have an amazing panelist today, Anup Oja from Oracle. He is Oracle's global HPC cloud engineering manager, and he'll be talking about security, which is very important to us, and how Oracle's security actually works, which is what Grid Markets actually uses. And then we will jump into the actual part, the meat of this webinar, which is Fabian breaking down that amazing scene. We'll then, have a question and answer where you can actually ask any of our panelists any questions that you may have. Just remember, this is going to be this is being recorded right now, and it will be available on Grid Markets webinar website on www.gridmarkets.com/webinar, so you can actually watch it later. Don't worry about that. Now, without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Mark Ross, Grid Markets co-founder, to just come to the stage, talk a little bit about what Grid Markets is, how you got started. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Ahmed. I'm one of the founders. Oops, sorry, just 1 second. I'm one of the founders of Grid Markets, as Ahmed mentioned. And sorry, let me get the right slide here. Apologies. Oh, geez. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, so yes, I'm one of the founders of Grid Markets. I'm based in San Francisco, and I wanted to give you a quick overview of Grid Markets before we get started, so you know who you're talking to and what we're all about. Some of you already know us, but some quick facts. We were founded in 2011. Our mission at a high level is to democratize creativity. And how are we doing that? We're focusing on simplifying and accelerating demanding workflows, specifically in the media and entertainment area, rendering and simulations. We also, you may or may not know, have another business which is focused on the pharmaceutical side, where we likewise help to simplify and accelerate molecular simulations for the drug discovery process. On the media side, we have over 4,000 customers. They're large studios in some cases, all the way down to students. So we have a big range of people and studios and customer types that we cater to, and they reside in over 90 different countries. So at any moment in time, Grid Markets is always busy. There's always some customer that's interested in doing some sort of a rendering or simulation. It's important that you should know that our platform was designed and built by artists. So there are a number of artists who are part of Grid Markets. Adam is one of those. There's a number of others, some of whom you have met. But the platform, the workflow, the pipeline, the features, and so on, were all conceived of by the artists who are a part of the team, and also by artists who are not necessarily a part of the team, but who have made suggestions along the way. And we have tried to be very attentive to those suggestions and to incorporate those ideas into our roadmap. So with that, I am going to now give you a little taste of what Fabian is going to do. So I wanted to show you his clip. He's going to go into this in more detail, but this is really what we're showcasing today is this scene, which he was very instrumental in creating. So let me get that started for you. Well, every time I watch that scene, I have to hold my breath. It's quite an impressive scene, and we're gonna, as I said, hear about that in a few moments with Fabian. Before we do that, a couple quick things on how do you get started with grid markets. It's very simple. You go to gridmarkets.com/signup. There's a create account button, which you can see here at that web page. Once you do that, you then download something called Envoy, which Hakeem is going to explain to you in more detail. And you can see from the screen here, there are 3 different versions of Envoy, depending on what operating system you're using. Once you've downloaded Envoy, it comes with plugins for whatever 3D software you are using. So you can see we support Houdini, Maya, Cinema 4D, Nuke, 3ds Max, and Blender. So depending on which of those software solutions you are interested in using, you would install the appropriate plugin. Once you've done that, in this example, I'm going to say that you've installed the plugin for Houdini. Then you use Envoy to upload your project files to us. We support most of the major renderers: V-Ray, RenderMan, Redshift, and Arnold. So your submission comes to the Grid Markets Cloud. It's then beginning to process, and the updates regarding that are sent back to a portal, which you can see a screenshot of here. So for the various jobs that you are working on at any moment in time, they will appear in this dashboard. Again, Hakeem will go over this in a little more detail, but you get the ability to control the jobs, see what the status of each of the jobs is through this portal. And then as your frames complete, they start coming down and are stored in a folder that you have designated at submission time. So that's it. It's a very simple process. Hakeem, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can talk about that in a little more detail, and Adam will also be talking about the Houdini pipeline in particular. So stopping sharing my screen, go over to you, Hakeem.
Okay, thank you very much. Mark, can everyone see my screen?
Yep, coming through.
Excellent. All right, so I'm just going to get into just a bit of the details of what Mark just provided the overview of. So very quickly, as Mark mentioned, you go to gridmarkets.com/signup, and then you go to that free trial and you can go create an account. Any of you who are Zinc users, please provide your Zinc URL so you're eligible for the discount, and do that when you sign up. So once you signed up, as Mark mentioned, you download the version of Envoy that you need for your operating system. So once that's downloaded, please go ahead and let that install. Once that installs, you will see that it actually updates some of its components. You can log in then with LinkedIn if you registered that way, or you can log in with your email. You'll see a page that says, please download the relevant plugin. And so you go to the plugins page and you will see the list of applications that you have installed locally. I'm going to go and install the one for Houdini 18.5, which will allow you then to go and submit from Houdini. With that, I will hand over to Adam to talk about the Houdini submission. Go ahead, Adam.
Yes, so I'm doing a cache in this scene, so I'm going to throw in a Cloud Cache node, and I'm going to rename it so that we all know what it does. And then I generate the ROP and the read nodes from the plugin and put my render flag on the read node, head over to the out context, wire in my geometry cache, and make everything super neat because we all like a neat scene. Hit submit render, the pre-flight runs through, pulls up. I mark which files I want to download to Envoy, and then I go over to the jobs tab to check my credit budget. I decide to leave it on no credit budget just to make sure, but if I did, it can have an alert me if it goes over. I can have it terminate the frames, or I can have it set to terminate the unstarted frames and just finish what's currently rendering. After that, I'm ready to go.
And as you can see, the files are then getting uploaded securely through Envoy. You can see in your submissions tab the jobs under that particular submission that you just made. And as they progress, you will obviously see them going from waiting to running to completed at any time. You can go and click on any of those jobs and see them progressing. Each of the frames as they get completed, you can see the log files. We're not going to show them here. I just wanted to give you a quick overview. And as you see them get completed, then you can go to the downloading tab, and as those frames actually get created, they will get automatically downloaded to you if you selected to do so in the pre-flight. At any time, you can go to the Files tab. You can go and see the actual files that were uploaded and anything that was created that you didn't automatically select to download. You can then go manually select and then go download that yourself. You can select the number of machines that you want to have running for your jobs. Economy is 5, standards 30, rushes 60, and you can request more as needed. We can go up to several hundred if needed. You're on the profile page. You can select the kind of machines that you want to run by default for the different kind of jobs that you want to run, CPU render, GPU render, and so forth. Finally, I wanted to show you there is an access key here, which you can then provide to collaborators and to clients, which if you provide that access key under your account, they will only be able to see the files for your project. So it's a great way to share that data without sharing all the other information about your submissions. So anyway, this was a very quick overview. I appreciate it was quite rushed, but we wanted to get to the main act. And if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mark.
Thanks, Hakeem. All right. Just a moment. Okay, we have Anup up, who will be next. Let me just get your slide, Anup. Sorry.
Sure. Let me share my screen.
Yeah.
No. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it. Go ahead, Anup.
Okay, so thank you very much. So first of all, Grid Market runs on Oracle Cloud. So that's very interesting. So we spoke about files, we spoke about compute, everything is running in Oracle Cloud. And what is Oracle Cloud? It's a Generation 2 cloud. And by the way, my name is Anup Oza. I'm a senior manager for the global HPC team. HPC means high performance computing. So I lead a team globally, and I have almost 15 people worldwide. And if you just think about it, I believe we have around more than 200 years of experience within my team. All we do is everyday high performance computing. We support customers like Grid Market and many more in the cloud. So just a safe harbor, something I want to give maybe 10 seconds for people to read. Thank you. So this is very interesting. So we started the Oracle Cloud journey maybe 3 to 5 years back. And we all know we have the competition in the market. AWS, Google Cloud, they've been there for many, many years. So when we started building this cloud, our founder, Larry Ellison, he told that we want to build a cloud which is different than how the first generation cloud was built. So the number one criteria on building the Gen 2 cloud was all about security. So security was built inside the cloud. It was never an afterthought process. So Larry hired all the smartest guys from everywhere. And he told them that build me a Gen 2 cloud, but do not make the same mistake that you have made in the Gen 1. So that's the genesis of the Generation 2 cloud that we call Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So I'm going to give you a quick overview how we differentiate and why companies like Grid Market really trust Gen 2 cloud. So when you put all your files, all the hard work that you have done, you want to make sure that that is totally secured with the cloud provider that Grid Market is running from. So historically, a Gen 1 cloud architecture is something that you see on the screen. So what happens is in the Gen 1 cloud, there's one big computer. So in this case, if you look at this, this is a machine that has your code, that is Grid Market deploys their code, plus the cloud provider also has their own piece of code, because there are two things here. One is the customer code, and the second is what we call the cloud control computer. They both are running inside the same machine. So what that essentially means is the cloud provider can see the customer code, and the user code can actually access the cloud control. So everything's running inside the same machine, and they all have access to each other. If you look at this is like security. Yes, I do believe that there are security inside, but it was an afterthought process. The basic infrastructure was not built based on security. If you go back to Gen 2 cloud, this is where we come in. That's where we started. That's what, as I mentioned earlier, we were asked to build something different that starts with security. So what we did was we gave you a compute or a machine to run your code or your piece of software, but we took the cloud control panel or computer outside that. So if you look at both the diagrams here, our security is customer cannot see our data, or we cannot see the customer data, right? They're totally independent. The first on the top, this is totally belongs to the customer, and the one below that belongs to Oracle. So this is how we have separated both of them. So if you look at this architecture, that's a Gen 2 architecture. That's how we can tell you that it's totally secure inside OCI. On the quick slide, if we look at again Gen 2 or Gen 1 in this case, right? The way it was built was it was one big machine. It has the networking on the same machine. It has the hypervisor on the same machines. So everything is built inside the same box. But what we have done in the Gen 2 is we took the networking outside, because there's no business for the networking to be inside the same machine that customer is running. So essentially, if you run on the left-hand side, if you look at it, I have a VM, but inside the same host behind, the cloud provider also has their own networking running. So that means that you're not getting the 100% CPU utilization. Whereas in our case, in the Gen 2 cloud, we took the networking behind, and then this is what Oracle manage and maintain. You do not pay for it, or the customer does not pay for it. You only pay for the machine that runs your VMs, right? So that means we give you more performance, and we have taken more responsibilities. If I go one step further, this also helps in security. If you look at this architecture, now what you're seeing right now on the left-hand side is if one of the VM get compromised, it's very easily the other machines will get compromised because the networking are inside the same host, right? So if you look at this red zone, everything get compromised. So that means there's more risk. So that's how we built the Gen 2. We really thought about this, what was the gap in the Gen 1 cloud. So in the Gen 2 cloud now, if you look at it, if a VM gets compromised, it's not going to propagate to the next machine or to the next host. So that's all I want to talk about the cloud and the Generation 2 cloud. I believe Mark and the team has done a really good job in trying to understand why they chose Oracle Cloud, right? And I think one of the genesis for them to choosing Oracle Cloud was security first. And I heard, or I keep on hearing from Mark that is very, very important to him and his customer. And this is how we can really guarantee how secure we are. And that's it from my side. Mark, any questions? I can come back later on.
Thanks, Anup. If you could stop sharing and I'll start sharing mine. Great, thank you. Okay, over back to you, Ahmed.
Sure. Okay, now the part that we've all been waiting for. Look, when I first caught up with Fabian back in January, Grid Markets, at Grid Markets, we do these series called Featured Artists. So if you go to our website, if you go to www.gridmarkets.com, if you click on community, you can find Featured Artists series, and you can see amazing artists, amazing stories that we tell. But back then we were scheduled for a 30-minute talk. We ended up talking, I guess, an hour and a half, Fabian, and I was blown away. So folks, just get ready. You're about to experience some greatness. So I'm just going to hand it over to Fabian. Go ahead and just tell us how did you do this thing?
Yeah, hello everyone. So let me share. Let me share my presentation. Here we go. Are you seeing it? Everyone can see the presentation?
Going through, Fabian. You're good.
Oh, yeah.
All right, cool. So yeah, just quick word about Passengers. So I'm gonna go through those slides because you already talked about me quite a bit, but yeah, here's a few movies that I've worked on. And we're gonna talk about this one, because there is something particular about this one. But yeah, Passenger is a movie that came out in 2017 with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt, directed by the Academy Awarded Morten Tyldum. And this film was initially not such a high budget movie, so it was actually pretty low budget movie, but it was very, very ambitious in terms of visual. So we had to make tons of different VFX for that movie. And FX wise, it was covering pretty much the whole spectrum of type of FX. So we did some massive plasma thrusters, some spinning energy shield to protect the spaceship from meteor crushing on it at very high speed. We created a plasma core reactor that gets out of hand and is about to explode. We had to make some fire, some smoke, vapor, lasers, glass shattering, falling debris, falling robots, vacuum effects, sucking everything around in the tiny holes. We even have to make a river in a grass of field for some of the final shots. We also had to create an entire dying star called a red giant, pretty much the same size of our sun. I think it was even bigger than our sun, with some magnetic field and solar eruption on its surface, which needed an insane amount of details. And a big up to the one-man army hero responsible for that, Javi, if you hear me. And of course, we also had to create an entire sequence with a swimming pool that suddenly goes in zero G, turning a peaceful swim and a deadly trap for Jennifer Lawrence character. And this was obviously a key moment in the story. It has to be totally hard directed in order to fulfill what the director had in mind. And from an FX point of view, it was probably the biggest challenge of that film. So yeah, I'm just gonna replay that clip, a very short clip. It's actually a different clip than what Mark showed a bit earlier. I'm just gonna set resolution there, and I'm gonna play it in loop. You can all hear the sound, right, of the video?
Yes, we can. Probably that's good.
Warning, gravity failure.
So yeah, this was a multiple challenge show. Oh, hold on, just a second. Damn it! Come on, oh, come on, guy. You're doing that to me, right? Oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yep, you're there.
Yeah, sorry, I was gone for a second. I think my.
You're back and better than ever, Fabian.
All right. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think my computer, because my machine is on for weeks and weeks doing calculus, and I think maybe the RTX graphic card was a bit hot and decided to just shut off the whole screen for a second. All good. So it's back. So yeah, as I was saying. This was a movie with a challenge at many levels. So we had to create something never seen before, because as far as I know, at that very moment, there was some movie with a bit of water, of blood, oil, and whatnot in zero G, but it was always tiny amounts, like a few droplets, but nothing even remotely close to the amount of water in a swimming pool.
Hey, Fabian, sorry to interrupt. Just so you know, right now the screen is frozen on the start of the loop.
Oh, all right. Let me just stop sharing the screen and I'm gonna start again.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, is it back?
It is not back yet.
Oh, hold on. What do you see exactly on the screen right now?
For me, it just says Fabian Nowak has started sharing his screen share, but there's nothing. I don't see anything actually.
Okay, this is great. Damn, sorry. Well, hold on. Let me do that again. Do you see anything?
No, we might need to go to plan B.
Oh, hold on.
Looks like your video card may have overheated and stopped doing its
That's
streaming.
I was thinking about that actually, yes, because
Yeah.
I got like a black screen for a second, and that might explain that. Oh. That would be,
Try changing your resolution and changing it back. It might reset the streaming protocols.
yeah. So I'm not sharing anything at the moment, right?
Correct.
Hold on. Oh, I think I've got an issue there.
Fabian, do you want, I can potentially bring up your slides as the plan B.
Yeah. Yeah, hold on.
Go ahead, give it a moment.
Yeah, no, it's just because I kind of lost everything there for a second. Oh my God, why is it happening just at the worst moment? That this is.
Yes, it always does, doesn't it?
God. Everything was fine until a few minutes ago. I'm really sorry, folks. I'm gonna try to sort this out. But
Someone has said just like production.
Exactly.
yeah, just like production, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like
There's
If the
always the
wor-
technical
yeah,
issues.
if the
at
worst
end.
can happen, it will happen.
And at the worst time.
Yes.
Oh, of course, always,
Tell you what,
always.
hey
Yeah,
Fabian,
you have to be
take
ready
your
for that.
time. We've got a couple questions. Maybe we'll just change.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
order a
go
little bit.
for a quick question.
Yeah, one question. Looks like this is probably for you, Hakeem. Can you hear me? Hakeem,
Yep,
the question
I can.
is, the person is representing a studio. They're concerned about security, and they would like to know how can they learn more about Grid Market's security architecture and so on.
Right. So actually, the easiest way is if you go to gridmarkets.com/security, you'll see an overview of how we've kind of put the system together. You'll see that basically we're encrypting everything end to end. We do follow MPAA guidelines on this, and so we have had actually been audited by some companies on our security model. And so we're very confident that we can keep your IP very secure. So anyway, if you have any more details that you'd like to know, first go to gridmarkets.com/security, and of course, then drop us an email, and we'll be happy to answer any more detailed questions.
Great, thanks, Hakeem. We have another one. This looks like for you, Adam. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, so the question is coming from a Houdini user. They want to be able to do simulations. They're wondering whether simulations can be done on the Grid Markets platform.
Oh, absolutely. As I showed in my demo, all you got to do is throw in a Cloud Cache node and wire it into your network in the out context, and you're basically ready to go. It's the most straightforward. I, as an artist, use it all the time. Almost daily sometimes I'm pushing simulations to the cloud because it gets it off my computer and I don't have to worry about running out of memory. I just did a water sim where I was using 180 gigs of memory for doing the surfacing. I don't have to worry about tying up my machine, so I can still work on other projects or do a game or something while I'm waiting for it to finish. It's absolutely sublime to use.
Hey, Adam, they didn't ask, but how big can the simulation machines of Grid Markets get up to in terms of their configuration?
Oh, actually, I think Hakeem might be the better person to answer that one for an exact answer, but I have pushed the 300 gigs. Hakeem can give an answer on how big the actual machine can get to.
Yeah, we can get to more than that if needed. So, but I think for most of the jobs that we've run, 300 has been plenty. It's 386 or something, I think. And so, if you want more than that, then let us know and we will find higher RAM machines for you.
Cool. Fabian, it looks like you are back. We have a couple more questions. I can take a few more, or we can resume with your presentation.
Up to you. I think I had to quit and restarted Zoom actually.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, you're looking good now. So why don't we turn it back over to you? Go ahead, Fabian.
Yeah. Let's do that, and then we'll go back to the Q&A after that, right?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Cool. So yeah, I was saying multiple challenge show. So we had to create something never seen before. We had to make all of that with Houdini, which most of the artists at MPC back in the days, I mean, at this time, never used, myself included. So yeah, first time opening Houdini, which, as you may know, is pretty hardcore at the beginning. And of course, we had to learn it on the fly, while at the same time, we were trying to deliver some fairly complex shots. And yeah, so as you know, there is nothing as efficient as learning on the battlefield. So it's probably for the best. And as I said, it was quite a limited budget movie, so nothing comparable to big stuff like Lion King or Avengers, for instance. But despite being a low budget movie, it was, as I said, very ambitious. Therefore, the delay to deliver everything was relatively tight, and we could not afford to have large team of artists. However, the amount of crazy requests from the director was pretty insane, to say the least. So for every department involved, it was actually quite a challenge in that regard, and all the effort were maximized as much as possible. So yeah, impossible task, new hardcore software to learn at the same time, limited time and resources. Like I think that was the right cocktail. Yeah, pretty challenging show, but we do love challenge. Otherwise, we would be doing another job. We start with research and development, of course. So we looked at the storyboard and the previs of the 0G sequence. And the first thing we thought was, how are we going to do that thing? What could be the right approach to bring that sequence to life? And as usual, in order to demystify that, we start with a bit of R&D. So I'm gonna play those video actually in loop, and yeah, mute them all. There's no need for sound. So we had to find some reference in order to know where we were going actually before starting the actual dev of the water. Hopefully, thanks YouTube and thanks NASA, we found some great footage of astronauts doing a bunch of tests of water with water and 0G in the space station, but with very, very small amount of water, of course, because they could not, afford to risk to put some water everywhere in the space station. I think it's full of electrical stuff over there. And also some tests in a very low gravity, which is the video on the very right, on the right side of the screen, which is not zero gravity, it's low gravity because it's in a parabolic flight. But that means they could bring a bigger amount of water. So yeah, there was maybe 2-3 liters of water, something like that, maybe a gallon, I don't know. And those 3 references that we can watch here became basically our main base for pretty much everything, from artistic discussion with the director and the VFX supervisor to our own understanding of the laws of physics behind this behavior that looks almost magical. So we found out that when the gravity is removed, which is the main force driving the water behavior on Earth, so when you remove the gravity, some other forces, which are usually negligible, are becoming all of a sudden the main forces in action, like the surface tension, for instance, which tends to make any body of water turn into a sphere. And why that? Well, because the spherical shape is the shape where the surface tension is the most evenly distributed. There is no corner, there is no angle where the tension could peak. So yeah, it's evenly distributed. So that's kind of like the rest shape, if you will, the perfect shape. So yeah, if you let some water in 0G long enough and you don't disturb it, it will eventually turn into a perfect sphere. But if you disturb it, I mean, if you had some external forces, like having a momentum, for example, in FX, we would say an initial velocity, or if you blow some air to make some sort of wind, if you poke it with your finger, or if you throw an object at it to make a collision, like a tiny camera, like we can see there with a GoPro, or if you splash more water to it, or if you inject some air inside, etc. Well, it will react accordingly. So it will make some surface waves. It will make some ripple. It will make some air bubbles inside that will inherit the motion of the swirling fluid inside the bubble of water. Yet eventually it will try to maintain or to go back to a spherical shape. And we've also noticed, you could see that just a second ago on the left reference, the one on the left screen side. that the air bubble that could be trapped inside a water bubble will not escape. They will stay trapped within that shield made by the surface tension. So yeah, that gave us a lot of hint for how what we needed to see in that sequence to make it look sort of realistic, if we may say. From there, started to do some development. As I always do, well, that's usually what I do on every big show I worked on. Is that I always start the same way. I basically make one massive simulation that sort of covers the entire sequence. So I try to cover all the different shots or every aspect of the sequence into one big simulation that allows me to foresee all the potential technical issue that I may encounter later during the production. And so I can think already about how to sort them out or how to work around or how to avoid them, more simply. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show you that initial R&D test. I would have loved to, but I can't. But I can tell you that even if that was not looking super great, it was because it was fairly low resolution. It was looking pretty cool. And I was also very happy because it was, well, my first simulation in Houdini. And so, yeah, I was doing something pretty crazy for my very first sim in Houdini. So I was quite happy with that. But most important, it was giving us straight away pretty much all the answers we were looking for. First answer, like heavy flip simulation. It looks cool, but it's going to be very hard to have a total artistic control if we let the flip simulation run free. So we need to find a way to really control it, to art direct it, because the director might want to draw manually where it's each droplets on each frame of each shot, which is something that actually happened in many shots. He was starting to draw, I want this droplet there, but this one I want it here. And so yeah, that was pretty crazy. The second answer that gave us is that, okay, it's not gonna work for the close-up shots and the underwater shot. Since they will be included Jennifer Lawrence performance, so the live action plate, and we will need to match some tiny portion of the actual plate with CG. So we will need to make a specific approach for this shot to have an absolute control on where the water surface actually is. And a third answer is like, once it's simulated at very high resolution, that should work pretty nicely for the end of the sequence when the gravity is coming back. But we might face some volume loss issue in the center of the swimming pool, which I have noticed on my initial tests. And we are gonna have to find a solution for that. So let's start to make the sequence. So the whole sequence could be divided in 3 distinct parts. And for each of these parts, we'll have a different type of water effects to create. We had wide shots, we had close-up shots, we had shots inside the water, etc. And on set, they built this underwater rig that could move Jennifer Lawrence up and down within it, that could also give her the ability to stop floating, so to counter the buoyancy, if you will. And that allowed the director and the VFX supervisor on set to shoot all the plates of Jennifer Lawrence that we needed to create all the VFX shots that would become the whole sequence. And we could use these plates to place her in any position, facing any direction we wanted, depending on the shot. But of course, it was not always working as planned. That would have been too easy. And quickly we realized that for some of the shots, we're gonna have to replace her entirely by a CG double. So the bright side of that is that it gives us much more freedom, especially for the wide shot. So the first part of the sequence, the first part is when the gravity, the artificial gravity goes off suddenly while Jennifer is swimming. It had to feel natural, even if it's something we never seen. It had to be gracious, and yet at the same time, it had to be scary, like a sort of water monster coming to life. So we had to keep the main character trapped inside a massive blob of water, and we had to keep her in the center of the frame or in very specific part of the frame. And at the same time, we needed to see some thinner splashes and bubbles of water moving all around the room. And at some point, well, the character managed to escape. She takes a panic deep breath, and then she's hit by a wave that is splashing back against one of the corners of the pool. trapping her for good in a much bigger blob of water. So I think for the two first shot of the sequence, so this one, the ZG70, and the one just after the ZG80. So not this one, sorry, but the two wide shots. So this one, yeah, for those two first shot, I think I did something around 250 version of the simulation for each of these shots. Yeah, that was, well, drive us nuts at some point, but that was also the fun part. So we had to come with we had to come with an hybrid approach where the animation department was making a blocking for each shot with rough shape in Maya. They actually used an OTL that we made for them via the Houdini engine, and in order to convert those rough sphere into some sort of like metaballs, if you will, but yeah, using an OTL that was basically converting everything into VDB and back to mesh, so they could present something that was looking somehow close to what we're going to do in FX. And then once those play blasts from animation were approved, we were getting back these rough shapes into Houdini and use them to sort of drive the FX simulation. So the first part of that sequence was mostly heavy flip simulation using a custom control tool that we created to art direct the water shapes and the movement at simulation time. In a nutshell, we were using the animation to create a sort of massive velocity field that then we use to advect the flip simulation within a certain threshold. So more inside the water, less on the border, more not at all outside. Or that was, yeah, we went through quite a lot iteration back and forth in order to get the right control on that stuff. And yeah, we also had to work around the gas surface tension from Houdini, which at that time was not working very fine, very well. I think we were using Houdini 15 or Houdini 16, I forgot. But it was before they kind of revisit the whole flip system and whitewater. So yeah, at this time, the gas surface tension was actually kind of working until a certain point, and then it was starting to create some crazy turbulent noise on the surface, which was the total opposite of what we wanted to see, because we wanted to keep the surface very smooth. So it was, yeah, that and the overall control was really the actual battle for us in FX. So we did a lot and a lot of iteration until everyone was finally happy. And when I say a lot of iteration, I really mean a lot, with a lot of changes. Here you can see, for example, on the top left corner, the ZG136 shot. On top left corner is the version that came out for the trailer, for the first trailer, and then a month later or 2 months later, the final version in the movie, which is on the bottom right corner. And so as you can see, it's the same shot, but they really looks massively different. Personally, I really prefer the trailer version visually. But well, first it's a matter of personal opinion, but also it's as a shot on its own, I preferred it, but it had to work. It has to work within the sequence. So in terms of storytelling, of evolution during the sequence, of continuity between shots, the final version made actually much more sense. You can also notice on those two screenshots that the selling of the room has drastically changed between the two versions. I think the environment artist who worked on that created hundreds versions of that selling. I think he was really going crazy at the end. He could not watch the selling anymore. I did too many versions of that. I think, I'm not lying, but I think it was something around 570 versions of the selling or something completely crazy like that. So the second part of the sequence is, so I'm gonna play that on the back. The second part of the sequence, so after the beginning, the whole water starts to gently settle, making very large bubbles of water that are wobbling, and smaller ones, and even smaller ones, and smaller ones, down to the very thin droplets dancing all around the room. Everything is moving slower and slower along the shots, but at the same time, Jennifer's character is fighting more and more, trying to escape to reach to get some air. And yeah, she's getting really stuck into something that looks more and more like a deadly trap. And yeah, she's trying to reach the surface wherever the direction of that is, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Is like the surface is not up, might be down. It's like, yeah, it makes no sense, but it's actually the way it works in space. And so the tension is building, the music is getting more and more dramatic, up to the point that the character loses consciousness, and suddenly everything is so quiet, and it becomes almost like an embryonic shot. This one, with the star visible on the background through the window, and we sort of reached that moment of strange grace, almost like a sweet death. And so that second part, from a simulation point of view, was mostly underwater bubbles, so inside the water, like the air bubbles. Really, that's pretty much the only thing we really simulated. Which was fairly easy, actually. It was some very using some curl noise and the CG doubles velocity to generate some velocity field that could advect a very simple particle system, and then instancing some sphere on top of that to make some air bubble. But there was no real big flip simulation, only the small one, to get some small splashes there and there on the side of the room. And so we made most of that part of the sequence with massive deforming geometry, fairly easy to control, actually very easy to control, and that gives us the 100% art control that we were looking for. So we could match exactly where the plate was to make the water surface match it exactly. Like, for example, on that shot where she got the ends out of the water. Here, if I press pause for a second, so the end and her inside the water, it's obviously it's an actual plate, but around there is an invisible blend, and all the rest is full CG. And then she's keyed, so we can roto her out and add the air bubbles and add the CG environment behind and everything. And so for that kind of stuff, we really needed to have the full control on it. And so yeah, this could be mixed also with some ripples. So as you can see, I've run a few ripple simulation just to get ripples around the intersection with the hand, traveling across the water and fading out. And that shot, for example, this one inside the water, this one is full CG. There were no hand or nothing, because we decided to add this shot like very lately in the production. It was not planned in the initial previs, I think. So yeah, and it was mostly a trick at render time. So we had to cheat the index of refraction of the water, the IOR, which normally is 1.33 of the real water, and then we went to something like 1.5 or even higher, so which is more something like glass. So it's less refractive, it's deforming less. The idea was to get the water more clear, less deforming, less refracting, so we could see perfectly Jennifer Lawrence's face when she was in the water and the camera was outside, and we could also see the environment through the water surface behind her when the camera was inside the water. So yeah, let me show you quickly a very simple approach of how you could do that if you want to do it at home. So you make a simple sphere, you give it enough subdivision so you get something fairly high res, and then you just start to add some mountain deformer on it to make it very simple. And then if you animate the time with like a simple expression like $F $T times 0.25 or whatever, I think that's what I put there. Then you get already, like a very simple wobbling shape. Then you smooth it, and then you start some other noise on top of it with smaller and smaller scale to get the thinner details, and you end up with something that might look roughly like a water bubbles. You could do the same with using attribute VOP and stacking some noise and flow noise and animate them, and having the same sort of result. Or you could use that same sphere with less subdivision to get normal and upward vectors, and then you can use a simple Gaussian spectrum to get a spectrum running on top of the surface. Then depending on how you are setting your spectrum, you're going to get obviously different results, but that's going to give you very quickly some something that looks like you are what we are looking for. So we did a bunch of iteration. Then you just, here for just the example, give it normal material just to get something blue and a reflective. Then I put like a transform to give it an animation to make it move sideways. And then with two simple key, I just be sure that the key are linear, so we don't have like an acceleration and slow down, but something linear. And then you make a play blast out of it, and that gives you, here you go, like a big sphere of 0G water, sort of, floating in the air. And then if you want to make like an actual passenger shot, you're gonna need more than that. You're gonna need all the background as well. So let's say you make a big box, you fill it with points. Use a point from volume if you want to make it simple. Give them a random p-scale, random normals. Then you make an animated noise that is based on time. So we get each PT num moving and getting multiplied over time. So they are, moving less and less. So let's watch this. Yeah, I need to display the point a bit bigger. Sorry, here we go. So you can see the points are moving, and then yeah, a few lines of vex just to make them rotate. Each of point make them rotate over time, and then copy to point the sphere that we created just before, and know that they all have different rotation and p-scale. Then you add the hero bubbles with your character inside on the foreground, and play blast that, make a flip book, and boom, you get pretty much an a passenger shot. And then you're gonna have to make the air bubbles inside. So as I say, I'm not gonna do that, but it's a fairly easy particle system with a bit of noise.
Hey, Fabian, just want to give you a quick notice, time check, five minutes till we conclude.
Yeah. Well, that's well, we are on the end. So the last part of the sequence, so when the artificial gravity is coming back, the whole bodies of water suspended in the air suddenly crashes back to the ground and in the pool, as well as Jennifer's character. And then she wakes up and manages to swim back to the platform, back to safety, and end of the sequence. So this was initially due to be a mix of VFX and an actual plate. So they shoot on set. You see, they recreated the whole swimming pool, and they put this big water tank on top, on the top of it. Let me show you there the breakdown. So with a stunt woman sitting in a water tank, and they let it fall in the water. But of course, it was just unusable as it is. So we replaced everything in full CG. Which was much more simple and easy to control. So for that part, I was back to heavy flip simulation plus custom whitewater solver to make the foam and spray. Again, because yeah, Houdini 16 or before 16.5, so the whitewater solver was not that great at this time. So we decided to go for a custom version of it. And so yeah, with a mix of flip simulation and a pop particle simulation for the whitewater, and a bit of rigid bodies for all the furniture, all the chair, the table, the lights, the lamps falling back on the ground, and some of them into the swimming pool. So for that, what I've done is that I made like a first flip simulation, let's say mid-resolution, that I used just as a velocity field to advance a rigid body simulation, so they looks like they were pushed by the water. And then once I got the rigid body simulation, I could use that as a collision, dynamic collision for the actual high resolution flip simulation of the water, which I rerun on top of everything. So you could make some splashes, around the chair, around the furnitures and everything. And it was looking like everything was actually working as a whole. And yeah, as I mentioned before, I had some volume loss earlier that I noticed on the R&D, which is at this time I had no idea how to fix it properly. Now I would know how to do it, but at this time I had no idea where those particles were disappearing, because you should get the same amount of water back into the swimming pool, but eventually the whole pool was like sinking, like if I had a hole at the bottom of the pool, which I had not. And so I did not understand where it was coming from. So I tried to fix it, but didn't manage to. So I just walk around it, and I actually hide an emitter of water that was not visible from the camera angle, but that was emitting a bunch of water on the first frame. So I could kind of compensate the water that I was losing with the volume loss. And so, yeah, that was pretty dirty fix, but you have a problem, you don't know how to fix it, but you have to keep moving forward. So there is no bad solution. If that fixes your problem, then it's a good solution. And you will have time later to think about how to fix that the proper way, the smart way, if you want. Since we were selected for the Academy Awards and the VAS, I got the chance to make some flying cameras and break down through the shots to get the cool stuff that we are able to put in the technical breakdown, and that's what we are looking here. So yeah, a lot of fun. That was sort of like a reward for me after the whole battles of the 0G sequence. And let's have a look at the final sequence completed. So I'm gonna show you all the cuts, all the shots, sorry, but uncut in full resolution. So when I say uncut, it's because all the shots have the handles, so they are not trimmed as they are in the final cut. So for those who are not working in visual effects, when we are working visual effects, we are actually working with what we call a full frame range. And then there is the cut range, which is usually something around 10 frames at the head of the shot and 10 frames at the back of the shot, at the end of the shot, that are used just to give some flexibility to the editor, so he can shift forward or backward a tiny bit each shot. And so, yeah, usually as an artist, it happens very often that sometimes you make something that looks super cool that you are really proud of, and unfortunately it's actually in the handles, so nobody will ever see it in the cinema. Only you and your colleagues knows that it's here. And the cool thing is that the VFX studio, when they give you all the shots for making your show reel, they give you the actual full frame range of each shot, so that's pretty cool. So that's what you are watching here, and I just put some little fade to black where there was some other part happening somewhere else in the spaceship, just to stay on the water stuff. So there you go, you got everything there, and that's it. I think I've reached the end of my presentation.
Awesome, cool.
So yeah, thank you everyone, and I hope you found that little talk interesting.
Oh no,
Okay.
not interesting. Fascinating. Oh yeah, fascinating stuff.
Come on. Well, thank you very much.
I'm telling you, this was amazing stuff. So we got a bunch of questions, but before we get there, there's this question that I gotta ask you. So this was pretty complicated stuff, right? And now we are living in a world where you got remote set. You got to be able to deliver in a remote only environment. Is this something that we can actually do these days with this complexity?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can. I mean, yeah, the complexity has nothing to do with working in remote. As long as you are, well organized and the communication goes well between each person involved, that's gonna be fairly easy. Right now, for example, I'm working on some fairly complex shots that involves pretty much all the disciplines. So we have concept artists, animators, modeler, lighters. I'm doing some heavy effects, and we are all working from different places. We are all dispatched all around Europe. I'm in France. There is all the compers are in UK, or most of them are in UK. We have some people in Eastern Europe, in the south of France, north of France, wherever. So yeah, that's no problem. We are all connected all day long via a large Google Meet. So it's a bit like if we were all working in the same floor in an open space office. So we can share our screen or at any time. We can show what we are doing. We can ask any question if we have any problem, or yeah, and it feels, it gives a bit of social, if I may say so, because we are all, like talking or mumbling or swearing sometime when something is not working. So yeah, we really feel like we are all on the same floor. It's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm actually doing the same with some students. All the students in my school, they are all working, on their graduation movie, or preparing their graduation movie for next year. And same thing, they are all locked down, so everyone is at home in a different part of Paris, or sometime even in France. And yeah, they are all, on the same Discord channel, so they are all chatting together and sharing stuff. And as long as you have like a sort of massive Google Drive where everyone can put stuff and grab stuff, then it's just a matter of communication and an organization. Yeah, that's definitely doable.
Awesome. Next question is Tiago's asking, did you use multi-solver with rigid body and flip in same DOP network?
So sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, he's writing. I think you should be able to see it. But did you use multi-solver with rigid body
No,
and flip?
no. Yeah, no, I sorry, I didn't read the question. Oh yeah, for the furniture stuff at the end. No. Yeah, I think we could go that way, but that would make everything like very heavy and slow, and also you would have a lot of issue, you know, really controlling the rigid bodies themselves, because for people who already tried that, you need to, you know, to tweak the density of each rigid body, so they are more or less dense, so they're gonna float or sink more. And if you know, if you have like many different objects with different type of materials or shapes or size, it's gonna be a nightmare to make everything like working properly. Plus, it's gonna actually really slow down the whole simulation and the rigid body and the flip simulation. And yeah, in the end, you're not gonna get any. I mean, the way I've done it is fairly easy, and it gives you like full control on everything. You have full control on the flip. Then you make the rigid bodies. You get them moved by the water, so they really looks like they're actually moving with the water. And then if you want that particular object, you know, to stop here, you can do it without, you know, affecting the rest of the simulation. And then you rerun another sim on top of that to get splashes and collisions against the rigid body object. And in the end, you just merge everything together, render everything together. You'll never see the difference. And that's much more easy to control. I mean, that gives you a much more artistic control on top of on that. And also, yeah, that makes, I think that optimizes the simulation time quite a lot. I hope that answers your question, Thiago.
I think Thiago is pleased with that. There's a couple more questions. I think one for Grid Markets. It probably should go to Adam. Hag is asking, does it work with PD? Does Grid Markets work with PDG as well?
Currently, we do not have PDG support, though it is something we are definitely investigating, and hopefully we have official support soon. It's there's a lot of cogs and wheels we need to get working for it to all come together right, and we don't want to produce a subpar product, obviously. So it is being worked on. It is something that is being investigated, and yeah. So hopefully very soon.
Karen is asking a couple questions. One should, I think, go to Hakeem. Does Grid Market support 3D Light renderer?
So we don't support 3D Light as yet. It is something that we've had a couple of inquiries about. So if you actually go to gridmarkets.com/versions, you'll see the list of applications and renderers that we currently support. But we are adding to that. We should be adding Corona, for example, soon, but also 3D Light is something that people have been asking for. So Karen, if you have a project that this is something that you need soon, then please let us know, and we'll be looking to support many other renderers and other applications such as Katana in the near future.
Here's another one, which is my question as well for Fabian. How much time you took to make this entire sequence and those 500 variations?
I don't know exactly how much time, but it was months. I think it was. I don't want to say anything wrong, but yeah, it was definitely a couple of months. And it's too bad because I used to have all the numbers, the actual numbers, but I know that also, in terms of disk space, we went, I think there was something around 1.5 petabytes of data in total for the whole show, something pretty crazy. So that's definitely not something you can do alone at home, if that's your question, Karen. But that's definitely something you can do with the help of a render farm. Definitely. How many FX artists were working with you on this shot? So I started with my friend Javi, that I think he's here somewhere in the comment. I think I saw him commenting. So yeah, we started pretty much at 2 artists, and eventually we end up. Let me think just a second. Maybe 6 artists in total at the peak, who were actually covering all the shots with Jennifer Lawrence in the bubble when the camera was pretty close to her. But the big heavy flip simulation shots were done by me and by Javi. So we split them. I did the two big first one when the gravity goes off and the swimming pool start to rise, and then the second shot. And then we had a little cut, and then there is this other shot, the one that I show you, the ZG 136 with the different version from the trailer and the final. That was done by Javi. And the other one, when the big bubbles splash in the big one, was also done by Javi. But we were using, Javi was using some caches of my first shot to place them in the background, so to get some big stuff, and we were just retiming them so they looks like they were going slower, so they didn't look like the actual cache from the first shot. There was a lot of tricks, and cheating everywhere. But yeah, for all the once we were good with the setup for all the inside shot and the outside shot, the close-up, we could dispatch those shots to junior artists who were actually, kind of just running the setup we were giving to them, and yeah, that was pretty crazy, because at first I thought we were going to go to be able to do everything just me and Javi, or Javi and me, I should say. And eventually, the production start to go crazy. There is more retake on some other sequence, more stuff to do. Suddenly, new shots coming, and yeah, and the delay is not pushed back, so we still have to deliver everything at the same date. So at some point, yeah, we started the show. We were like very few artists on the whole show. I think we were maybe 3 or 4, and we ended up maybe at the peak of the production, we might have been like 12 FX artists in FX. Just maybe for a couple of weeks, but that was just in order to get done a bunch of shots. So yeah, there was pretty crazy.
Awesome stuff. Look, we got more questions, but we just can't answer them at this point. We apologize for not getting to all your questions, but don't worry about it. Just send us your questions again to support@gridmarkets.com, and then we'll be answering them for you. Just one more reminder, this whole session was recorded. It will be available on gridmarkets.com, and you can go to gridmarkets.com/webinars, and we have another one coming up on May 19th with our My Artist, Ryan O'Phelan. So you don't want to miss that one too. Just go to gridmarkets.com/webinars and go ahead and try to join that as well. There's one bit of reminder here that Zinc users will actually get a 20% off for the first month. But I got to ask real quick, Mark, how does that work for Zinc users?
Thanks, Alman. Very easily, go to the homepage. There's a button there. It says looking for a Zinc render farm alternative. Click the button and there will be a page that's specific for Zinc users, which will give a feature comparison. And there will be a sign up place. And on the sign up form, there is a place where you can put your Zinc URL in, which will then qualify you for that discount.
Beautiful. And folks, remember, you can go to the website and you can use the promo code 2021 May 12 webinar and get 50 free credits. Go ahead and do that. You don't want to miss this. You want to try the beautiful environment Grid Markets can provide for you. Look, I wish we had another hour because there's just so many questions I didn't get when I was talking to Fabian back in January. I still have a lot of questions. I know a lot of folks also do, but hey, this is all the time we had today. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much, Fabian, for sharing.
That was awesome, Fabian.
Amazing, beautiful stuff. Fantastic. With us. Hopefully, we will see everybody in our May 19th webinar, the second in the series. Please go ahead, like I said, to the website and register for that too. With that, have a beautiful day, everyone.
Cool. See you soon, guys.
Thanks, Fabian.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks for joining.